you so much for joining us once again here on aNews. We have been talking about the US elections for a while now, and things change quite hectically. Ever since we talked about the assassination attempt to Trump, and we were talking about how he said that he took bullets for democracy, quote unquote, and now we have a shift in the Democratic side, and they are in the Democrats. They are saying that Biden is no longer a candidate. What would you say?
It's there's a little bit of audio issue, but it's a really challenging time for us because it's this collision, almost a meteoric collision of what an administration has done wrong. And by that, I mean the Biden administration not early on having the president's internal group say, all right, we were elected on the 20th of January, 2021. We're in. Our guy's the president. He's sitting in the Oval Office behind the Resolute desk. Now we need to focus on the vice president because we need to have everybody believe and comfortable with that on the 23rd of January, President Biden dropped dead, that Vice President Harris can be president. So the administration failed with that. They gave her assignments that were impossible to fulfill, migration, immigration being one. And then the next issue is hubris. And politicians have that. It's part of their DNA. They believe they're indispensable, they believe they're irreplaceable, and they don't want to give up, despite evidence in front of them saying, now's your moment. Great example is with Associate Justice of the United States Supreme Court, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who had incredible amount of health problems, her body riddled with cancer, yet she continued to serve. And during the last year of the Obama-Biden administration, Democrats had reached out saying, hey, you were a Democrat appointee. You're not in good shape. Yes, you're functioning, but you need to leave, because if you don't, your seat might go to a Republican. And sure enough, she dies. And before the election, the United States Senate, which must confirm Supreme Court justice, controlled by the Republicans, and they say, we're not even going to give a hearing. So Donald Trump gets an appointment to the U.S. Supreme Court. And then, thirdly, we have just the optics, domestically international, which is our democracy is in trouble, that this isn't, this shows that how we define democracy just doesn't work. But I would push back on that third point and say, this is precisely what we were built for. This is what the signers of the Declaration of Independence, the framers of the Constitution, this is what the documents were all about. It's seeing crisis, getting through it, and we will. Is it going to be messy? Yes. Is it going to throw analysts into orgasmic excitement? Yes, it will. Will it make governments nervous in the rest of the world? Yes, it will. But in the end, there will be an election in 107 days. President Biden's there for another 184 days, and we'll move on to the next one.
107 days and the re-election, we do not have a Democrat side's candidate yet. So what would you say about this? Is it beneficial for the Democrats to have this later on in the election run, to have a new candidate? Is it going to be okay, or is it a badly timed decision perhaps?
Well, for the Republicans, they want it as messy and ugly as humanly and as animally as possible. They just want a mess. They want Democrats fighting with each other. They want them criticizing each other. They want the Democratic Party establishment detaching from the electorate. They just want it to be a mess come August when the Democrats have their convention. For the Democrats, it's a challenge because Joe Biden in the history books will be the guy that made it possible for the first woman to be vice president of the United States, the first woman of color, both Jamaican and Indian, to be vice president. And that's his. That's his for the history books, and that's a big deal. But now he stepped aside, and the natural progression is if this is the person that he believed, if he dropped dead, could be president, then it sort of makes sense that she's the next one up. Uh, but it's not that easy because people are starting to look and they say, okay, let's look at her candidacy when she ran for president. Let's see her record in the U.S. Senate, her record as Attorney General in the state of California. And can she beat Donald Trump? And then can she select someone as a vice president who can take on J.B. Vance, who's the vice presidential nominee of the Republican Party, who's a gifted orator. And so now that's where we are to see how quickly the Democrats decide what they want to do. I mean, the practical is do everything virtually and do it fast. Take the 4,000 delegates that are currently pledged to President Biden. You get them to do a vote immediately and say Harris is our person. Then Harris selects someone as the vice president, and they get a lot of traction because Donald Trump now has the luxury of being the nominee for the last week, and the Democrats will not officially have a nominee for the next month. So, there's just a lot of those traditional moving parts. We'll see what they do, but right now, if they were to throw her over the side, then I think that Donald Trump is back at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, and J.B. Vance and his wife and 3 children are moving into the Naval Observatory where the vice president lives.
So, do you think that next month they are going to choose Kamala Harris, or do we expect anything that comes such a surprise, such a new name, a brand new name?
There could always be surprises. Politics, so you look up politics in the dictionary and there's going to be a word there that surprise is a part of the definition. I don't think it's likely that she will not be the nominee. The guessing game now is who will she select, who will be recommended to her as the vice president. And right now, when you look at the list of 5 that are basically being bandied about, some governors and 4 governors and a senator, they all have a common theme. Well, 2 common themes. They're men and they're white. So what we do know is we have 2 white guys that are going to be on the Republican ticket. We have 1 black or female black Jamaican probably heading the ticket on the other side. And what are the Democrats going to do? Generally, you try to get a vice president who's going to provide some value, meaning they bring along their state. But in the choices that Kamala Harris has, there isn't really a person out there that's going to take a state away from Donald Trump. And then you have to worry about if you pick a senator, then the governor of that state gets to replace the senator. So if it's a Republican governor, now you've caused a problem in trying to keep control of the United States Senate. So there are a lot of these, chess and checkers and multi-dimensional gaming that's going on, and trying to figure out where can they extract someone that has gravitas, as Donald Trump selected former governor or then governor of Indiana, Mike Pence. He was conservative, sort of looked the role, former Marine, been in the U.S. House of Representatives, been a governor, so he had executive experience. So that sort of balance. With Harris, Attorney General, California, United States Senator, Vice President. What does she need? And so I think they're all going to be trying to figure out what does she need and how much help does she need.
Thing is for sure that no one is going to call her privileged if she is a candidate, because she is a woman of color and she is a woman in US politics. So I don't think that she is going to be privileged. I think that maybe because of this diversity, she can even attract many people back to the Democrat side. Do you think that she stands a chance, though?
It's going to be a really challenging time for the Republican Party. Donald Trump has a written verbal history of insulting women, including a memorable moment during the 2016 Republican debates where Carly Fiorina, an accomplished executive, former executive, CEO of Hewlett Packard, she was running. And he looks over at her and says, "Look at that face. Can you imagine a president with that face?" He was just it was astounding. But did it matter for him? No. Did it harm him? No. It was just, this is Trump just insulting women, as he did in the infamous comments he made, the vulgar comments about women on what he could do because he was a celebrity. And so it is expected at some point, whether it would be in the next debate, because there is another debate coming up that's scheduled in September. So it would be Harris Harris versus Trump, but Trump's going to say something. We know he's going to insult her gender as a woman. He's likely going to insult her as not being really black. She's Indian and Jamaican, so she's really not blacks. And the blacks love Trump because Trump loves blacks. And at some point, there'll be a discussion of his support for Israel, and she will say, well, my husband is Jewish, and he'll discount that, saying, well, that doesn't matter. I've done more for Israel. It's just going to be, potentially really ugly. I mentioned to someone yesterday in a conversation that I can imagine some pundit on the Republican side using the infamous N word just as they're talking about her. So unfortunately, I expect gender to be an issue, color, race, to truly come out with this. Just because Trump is as far as a person, a human being, he's an ugly example of a person and a human being.
That means that during the next debate, we are going to be sitting on the corner of our seats, ready to jump out towards the screen anytime sooner, because it is going to be interesting. Because what we saw for so long is that two old white men debating with each other. Those two old white men are... people on social media were actually joking about they're older than America itself. So now we have she is younger, actually. She is a younger person than Trump and Biden. So do you think that the perspective that she's going to bring to table for the Democrats is going to be a state of mind who is young as well? And in addition to that, for her being a woman, I mean, what if Trump wins? It is going to be really interesting. He beat Hillary Clinton, and she couldn't become the first female U.S. president. And if he beats now Kamala Harris, she's going to, again, the reason that the first female president of the United States being delayed, because it is eventually going to happen, hopefully. Once again, the reason is going to be Trump. What would you say about that?
Yeah, there's a lot there in what you packaged. You know, the ages, Kamala Harris is 59, so she's 59, 69, 74, so 15 years younger than Trump. Um, I can I can expect that in some weird way that Trump will try to replay what Ronald Reagan in 1984 said during his debate with then former Vice President Walter Mondale, where there were already issues about Reagan's age and questions about just how engaged he was, and he hit it, and he looked at Mondale, who was much younger, and said, "I'm not going to exploit my opponent's youth and inexperience," and brought down the House, and that was pretty much it. I'm going to guess in some way Trump's going to try to say that Kamala Harris is too young, that she doesn't understand the real world, she doesn't understand business. She's lived in California, which is the kingdom of overregulation, the kingdom of giving people who are entering illegally benefits, that have mandates electric vehicles and mandates environmental restrictions that make many companies leaving the state. The income taxes are too high, and people are leaving for Texas and Florida. So I'm going to guess, he's going to hit her in that way. The other is, in 2016, when Donald Trump ran against Hillary Clinton wasn't a well-liked woman, never really was nationally. So, and the way Hillary Clinton ran her campaign, she gave us Donald Trump. So she could have been the first female president. She didn't. She gave us him. Then COVID creates a very unnatural political process in 2020, and Biden is able to defeat Trump. I think had there not been COVID, Trump probably would have won re-election. And now we're at 2024, where we have the sitting president bowing out, and the vice president comes in, and now Donald Trump is again facing 2016, that he's competing against a woman, and this guy doesn't respect women. And so that's going to become a big part of this. And it's going to start seeping in, whether we see members of Congress, the House and Senate on the Republican side, pundits, media presenters, and they're going to start saying, look at the world: Ukraine, Russia, China, Syria, Iran, North Korea, the global economic issues. Can a woman, can someone wearing high heels and a skirt, is this really, what we want? We need a tough guy. Who's going to stand up to Putin, stand up to Xi, stand up to President Erdogan of Turkiye? Who's going to stand up to Assad? Who's going to stand up to all these people? She can't do it. She'll be worrying about her makeup and lipstick, and whether her heels match her purse and everything. I think this is going to be just really ugly in a really deep, unnatural way. But I think we're going to see some really ugly politics. And to go then to where you were ending, which was, okay, potentially that can be helpful. Harris is definitely going to energize Trump voters, because it's, hey, we've been telling you for a year, you vote for Biden and you're going to get Harris, because Biden won't make it through another term. He'll drop dead, he'll retire, whatever, and she'll be the president. So you vote for Biden, you're getting her. Well, now you really do have that choice. So you better support Trump, no matter what you think about him. Support him or you get her. On the Democrat side, she's going to energize women. The question is, will she energize enough women? Will she energize female independence? Will young people, young men and women, will they be energized? Will the African American population, the Hispanic population, which has been inching bit more Republican for issues relating to the economy and law and order. Will they shift back to her? Um, it's likely turnout in this election is going to be really high for everyone, all parties. But then you still have an unknown factor, which is you have some independents. You have three independents that are running, including Bobby Kennedy, and you have Jill Stein and Cornel West. So you have these parties that could end up taking 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10%. And then it gets really dicey because it's not who wins the popular vote in the United States, it's who wins the Electoral College. And you got to get 270 of those votes, and it's who's going to make it. So this is going to be really competitive, but I also think it's going to be really ugly. And in large part, it's because Donald Trump's feelings about women in general and how he treats them, including the legal issues he's had, is going to seep into a lot of this, and that's going to be unfortunate. But we'll get through it.
Since Kamala is likely to be a nominee, I really do wonder that how the situation is going to unfold, because whether she wins or not, she's going to take on a lot of pressure during this month, because she has 4 months to prepare. She has 4 months to tell the things about herself that has to be so on point that she can grab the attention again and fight against the biased opinions about the women, about people of color, about the statements that we're expecting to come from the Trump, such as a woman shouldn't be up to such high places in the diplomacy because she's not going to be able to deal with the planning of war and everything else. So I think it is either going to backfire and hit Trump, or people of United States are going to be convinced about this. So what is your expectation? Hopefully not. They would be convinced that a woman can't do a job, but what would you say?
The challenge is that a vice president's job, or a person's job when they become vice president, you support the boss, you support the president. So your identity as who you were beforehand has sort of melted away. If there was any disagreement between you and the presidential candidate, it sort of melts away, and you lose your identity, and people only see you as what's her job or what's his job, waiting for the president to die, presiding at the Senate. Other than that, you go around and kiss babies and go to fundraising events and stuff like that. So you don't have a real identity. And her struggle now is that for 3.5 years, her identity has been supporting Joe Biden. Now it's got to quickly pivot back to who is Kamala Harris and what does she believe? Now, if she starts saying, well, I supported Biden, but I didn't really agree with him, now you've got problems. So it's the focus is going to really be delicate for her to say, Joe Biden is not running again. I'm running. I'm inheriting Joe Biden's policies. I support Joe Biden's policies. But then if someone asked her, is there anything you disagree with? And if she does that candidate, oh no, I completely support him, people are just going to look at her and say, this is really disingenuous. You telling me 3.5 years, every decision Joe Biden's made that you're 100% with, and that if you become president, you're going to continue each and every one of them 100%. So she's going to have to select carefully both what she disagrees with him about and how she explains that disagreement. Because Donald Trump is going to say she's an empty vessel, that she has nothing about herself. She never won a primary. She dropped out of the race. No one likes her. And so he's going to paint her as a clone of Biden. But she's got to say, no, I'm Kamala. I'm not Joe. Okay, well, what does that mean? And so it's going to be an interesting process to see how she unwraps herself, how she unfolds herself without going too far and rejecting Joe Biden, or rejecting Barack Obama's administration, or rejecting Bill Clinton's administration. And so I think that this is going to be a next 108 days or so that we're going to watch something be very, very carefully managed, because she's still constrained because she is vice president of the United States. Joe Biden remains president of the United States. They remain in charge for the next 6 months. They have a government to manage. They have foreign policy issues to manage. Donald Trump can say whatever the hell he wants. He did as president, but he's unshackled. And J.D. Vance, unshackled. So they can say whatever they want. They can say what they're going to do. I'm going to end this. I'm going to make this happen. I'm going to cut this deal now, because there's no responsibility for any of the words they say. But Kamala Harris is vice president of the United States. Her words matter, because even for the next 6 months, Prime Minister Netanyahu is in the United States for this week. We'll be addressing the joint session United States Congress. Biden doesn't want him here. Harris really doesn't want him here. But here he is. But Trump wants him here. So there's all that constraint she's going to have. She tries to explain to everybody, I'm Kamala, and this is why Kamala should be president of the United States and not Donald.
It is going to be a hectic ride that we are going to take on in the next 4 months. And I personally do not know if I'm looking forward to or really scared about the next debate, and if we ever going to be ready to hear what is there to say afterwards. But we're going to...
At 12 o'clock p.m. on January 20th, 2025, we're going to know what happened, because at that moment, the next president will be sworn in. So there is an end to this.
And well, and without traumatizing a hundreds of years long history books, because a statement was made about a woman, or a woman has said something that shouldn't be said and everything else. I hope that we, as a world, actually get out of this safe and sound. We'll see about that. John, thank you so much for joining us here on aNews. Once again, always a pleasure to have you.